we're projecting that if it does indeed continue at the present pace, by the end of 1985, it'll be somewhere around 9,000 inmates. It may or may not continue at the same pace, depending on whether legislation just passed recently in 1983 has an impact on the population. If it may, the legislation may reduce the growth rate.
A long time ago, when folklore traveled on a steel ribbon, the local railroad depot was often a main attraction in small Oklahoma towns. The depot in Thomas is one of the few still in use by the Santa Fe Railroad. But after today, the old building will join steam engines and Pullman sleepers as part of the old days.
To see any extra Santa Fe, ATSF, 3006, 3000.
Tom Ellis has seen a lot of depots in his 37 years of railroading. He's also seen them slip, one by one, into the past as the railroad changes with the times. Regional facilities will replace these local ones, leaving them to an uncertain fate on the auction block. The old station is quiet and lonely now. Ellis has run the depot for the past 6 months, and the days haven't exactly been hectic. But in better times, this place has seen its share of late passengers and rush shipments. On its walls, the hash marks of nearly 70 years of railroading.
It's just a matter of changing of time that we have to sit back and watch. Kind of a sad occasion to see a depot closed and an era in itself closed down.
The Thomas Depot, now only a whistle stop on the road to a glorious past. In Thomas, Tony Stizza, Action 4.
We feel it can have a real useful purpose in neighborhood police protection, and also particularly around institutions such as college campuses and things like that. It's quiet, it will be very unobtrusive, and have the potential to sneak up on the crooks a lot easier than a gasoline vehicle maybe.
Even though the lakes that serve as our water supply are nearly full this summer, the residents of Oklahoma City have been faced with some serious water problems that have been growing for years and continue to get worse. And now there are some, even at City Hall, who now wonder if we have outgrown our water system. Consider, on several days this summer, city water treatment plants have come 10 to 15 million gallons short of meeting the demand for water. And that may be due to the fact that not much money has been spent in the last 10 years to expand the system. Since 1973, the city has spent $72 million on major improvements to the system, but only $2.5 million of that has been spent to expand treatment capacity to match the growth of the city.
I think it's a very frightening situation. We are dealing in 1983 with a water system that was designed, for the most part, back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. We have enough water. We're very fortunate that we have access to water. What we don't have is water distribution. We're not able to get it to people in the manner that they're entitled to have it.
How far behind we may be is shown even more clearly when you compare the water systems of the state's two major cities. This May, Tulsa completed a $14 million treatment expansion, bringing their capacity to 190 million gallons a day. Oklahoma City's is only 125 million. And while Tulsa is averaging a daily use of 140 million gallons, one day after we used that much, the city called for voluntary rationing. And nowhere have the effects of the water problems been felt more than in northwest Oklahoma City, where people have been dealing with the lack of water every summer for years.
This is home to me, and when I see all these new homes going in, all I see is less and less water come next summer.
And now some city officials say they're considering spending millions of dollars to upgrade the system. But it may eventually be up to the voters to decide if it's worth the money. Jeff Fowler, Action 4.
We have to think that, of course, the business here is watermelons. What is the big deal with watermelons?
They're good and everybody likes them. They're nice for a hot day.
The victims they're just happy to have something, somewhere to turn at a time in their lives that by no choice of their own they get involved in a situation where they happen to be out at times significant numbers of dollars by missing work as a result of an injury sustained, by having to be treated in a medical facility.
There are a few positive signs already. The state's active rig count is slightly higher, and more investors are taking interest again. The natural gas industry is still flat, but there is a ready market for crude oil. Companies fortunate enough to have a strong cash flow are having no problem selling every barrel of crude they produce. And according to at least one industry executive, the next couple of years belong to those who can get their hands on black gold.
We're going to devote our capital to drilling for oil. And I think most of the industry is going to look at it that way. We're finding that the wells we're drilling, the oil productive wells we're drilling, say to an average depth of 8,000 or 9,000 feet, cost about 50 cents on the dollar of what they cost in early '82.
Egoff believes the recovery process needs to be gradual and conservative. A time-consuming process, but one he and other industry leaders feel is the only real answer to the current problems.
We're going to let our people go down and help restore the vital services, and yeah, the word's being put out right now to all our people.
Now, would this be strictly on a voluntary basis who wanted to go?
Yeah. We'd call a meeting of all the work groups involved, like your cable repair people, your exchange repair people, and critical jobs, craft jobs, and then they'd be asking who wants to go.
How you doing? Doing better today. You look great.
The federal government will be stepping in with financial assistance for hospice programs around the country. Hospice care deals with the physical and emotional aspects of dying and allows the patient to spend their last days at home or in a home-like atmosphere as opposed to a hospital or some other healthcare facility. The new law will allow patients to use Medicare to pay for their hospice bills. And while some have praised the new plan, others are a bit skeptical. Hospice officials here in Oklahoma City, for example, are welcoming the extra funding, but fear the integrity of hospice is at stake.
Our position is that whatever the patient and his family wants, well, we're behind them 100%. I'm afraid that the patient at times could be exploited with this hospice bill. The main thing is the patient, as a consumer, and his family need to be aware of whether the hospice is affiliated with the National Hospice Organization. They need to ask that question. If they're not, then they need to be very careful.
Hi, Mama. Here's your pills.
Duncan believes the need for hospice programs in Oklahoma and across the country is urgent, but she feels the best interest of the patient could be lost if the need translates into big business with big money involved. Only time will tell. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
Seems to me like if it had been a Republican, it might have been a lot more publicity on it. I thought it was kind of underplayed, although they thought it was overplayed.
I personally, from what I heard of it, I personally didn't think they proved him guilty.
Well, I have served on jury duty before, and I know what all a juror has to do, and I feel like they came to the correct verdict. If all the evidence was submitted and everything, that they came to the right decision that he's guilty.
I really don't know. I just really don't.
I think that in all cases where there's a possibility that someone that is elected by the public could put themselves in a potential for that kind of trouble, I think that they should be scrutinized very closely, and I don't know if he was or not.
It's not uncommon, but you hate for it to happen to anybody. Just any more than you'd want the guy next door. But I'm not shocked, you know what I mean?
Started a little bit yesterday morning, but mainly yesterday afternoon.
The rain brought on by Hurricane Alicia was a blessing for central Oklahoma farmers who've been fighting the drought for 2 months. At some farms southwest of the city, rain gauges recorded more than 4 inches of precipitation. And that's just fine with farmer Harold Lawson. This weekend's rain will allow him to take his tractor out in the field sooner to get them ready for planting the fall wheat crop.
Most of the farmers will be working wheat ground within as soon as it dries up, putting down fertilizer, starting all over again. And it's a rain like this is sure helps the optimistic viewpoint of the farmer.
The rain and its cooling effect will probably help the attitude of his dairy cows, too. The extreme heat has been tough on livestock and tough on the hay and silage crops used to feed them. This silage field would normally be about shoulder height, but the lack of rain has cut its growth in half and turned much of it withered and brown. The rain will help some and with other summer crops like cotton and soybeans, but not enough to offset all the damage.
Well, it's cut the production of crops like this here in half, but it'll help this feed. It'll go ahead and it'll grow up twice as high as it is right now.
So while the rain may have come too late to save some summer crops, farmers are thankful anyway that Alicia came this far and got their fields ready for fall planting. Jeff Feller, Action 4 in southwest Oklahoma City.
Hello, Jeannie.
Hi.
How are you?
I would recommend a high carbohydrate diet, crackers, bread. I would recommend vitamin B6. I would recommend perhaps Imitrol, which is an over-the-counter oral anti-medication that's become popular. If you're severely ill, then we're probably going to use the hospital more and treat them with antiemetics, which probably are certainly less studied than Bendectin was.
We feel very comfortable that where she is now is not where she was actually stabbed. In close proximity, same area. It'll be a matter of, through that, in the examination of blood splatters, sometimes we're able to determine how she got from there to where she was found to where the incident actually occurred. Did she walk there while injured? Was she drugged there? Did she roll over there? A lot of what ifs that helps to piece that crime back together.
There's a market for many of the products in the state of Oklahoma. Agricultural products is an excellent example. Electronic products, and that's oil field equipment products. These are all in exportable category.
The Riverside Indian School is one of the few all-Indian schools remaining in the country. At 113 years old, it caters to the special needs of the Indian student. 35 to 40% of the students come from out of state. It's like a boarding school with dormitories located outside a reservation site. But since Concho shut down, room had to be made for 100 elementary students. The transition was not a smooth one.
We're trying to do in 2 weeks what we had originally planned to do in 3 months. And time is real short, and it's pretty hectic around here.
The Riverside Gymnasium is loaded with boxes of school supplies from the Concho School. Students face the first day of school unprepared. As one might imagine, a gym full of school supplies does not provide the best working conditions for the teachers who transferred to Riverside. They have been frustrated. They feel this equipment should have been moved out of here months ago, but that the courts were slow in rendering a decision on the closing of the Concho School. Carol Sodeke did her best to teach her 5th grade class, although she admits months of squabbling with the federal government have left her nerves shattered.
I don't particularly care for the temporariness of it all. It just seems like we're just here today, next week. I don't know.
Carol Sodeke hopes Riverside won't be the latest Indian school targeted to close down. She feels the school helps disadvantaged Indian children. If the school were to close, that would leave only one other Indian elementary school for the children to attend. It's located in South Dakota. Bella Shaw, Action 4, near Anadarko.
The grain mills stand as a constant reminder of Yukon, Oklahoma's rural roots. 10 years ago, boasting a population of less than 9,000, Yukon was a farm community. But today the town has exploded onto the scene as one of Oklahoma City's most fashionable suburbs. And Yukon residents are happy to be here.
You know more people than if you're in a big, huge city. I love it. I like it very much. The schools are great here, and everybody's real friendly.
It's a clean, polite, people are nice. And as far as me ever going back to Brooklyn, New York, never. I'll die here.
Suburban flight is nothing new. In fact, the Census Bureau reports rural America has gotten a lot more crowded in the past decade. The average value of a rural home jumped a whopping 264% from 1970 to 1980. But with growth comes problems.
The water and sewage, and to a certain extent, investment for like trash pickup is a major investment, but we're keeping up with it. We are going to have another bond issue for water in the near future.
The schools pose another problem. As soon as this town builds a new elementary school, temporary classrooms are erected to keep up with the expanding student population. But all the problems combined don't seem to bother this little community, because Yukon, Oklahoma is on the move. In Yukon, Kurt Autry, Action 4.
Good morning, Presbyterian Hospital Telemed. Number 12, thank you.
Number 12, am I really pregnant? The most common first symptom of pregnancy is...
Sometimes you have a question about your health, and it's a personal one you'd rather not pose to a stranger, but you must have an answer. That's when Telmed can truly help. You need only call and tell the operator what tape you'd like to hear. There are no embarrassing questions and no identifying yourself. The cost is nothing, and the topics are timely. More than 300 tapes are on file in this telephone library, covering everything from dental care to cancer to AIDS. The Telmed line is open to anyone with just about any kind of medical question. But keep in mind, it's not a replacement for a doctor.
That's real important to know, because we are not giving out medical information, just some of the symptoms, which is very important for people to know whether or not to see a doctor, but not in place of seeing a doctor.
If you'd like to call Telmed, the number is 271-6434. The line is open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., and on Saturdays you can call from 9 a.m. to noon. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
we in turn are willing to.
The city has sewer problems. You show me a city in America that doesn't have. And we can pass the biggest bond issue or we can pass the biggest capital improvements issue in the world, and we're still going to have sewer backups. The lateral lines that we were speaking of, sure, we're going to have sewer backups there. But we're doing the best with what we've got. Now the question comes, is this city ready for that type of a moratorium?
Now, I'm not saying that this city should have a citywide moratorium. I agree with you that the economic effects of that could be detrimental. But I am saying this, that this is one neighborhood of several where a moratorium is entirely justified under the law because it's based on a rational, real set of facts. Just because this neighborhood has a problem is not a request for a citywide moratorium. We don't think that would be appropriate.
Hundreds of Moore school teachers gathered this afternoon for an informational meeting with their union leaders. The Moore Association of Classroom Teachers have been bargaining with the Moore School Board since March for a new contract. The teachers are looking for more money, 2% more to be exact. But today's rally was more than a call for higher income. Organizers were stressing the intangibles involved, unity and purpose.
Your negotiations team has spared no effort in trying to move the board's representatives toward a contract which would satisfy the needs of the teachers. Your support has been very effective. The wearing of ribbons, attendance at the negotiation sessions, and the one-on-one contacts you make every day show your team and the board that you are not willing to settle for less than is fair.
So far this year, the teachers are working under the 1982 agreement, but it isn't satisfactory to them. In addition to their monetary desires, teachers want the school board to recognize their years of service to the system and reward those years of education with increment payments. And above all, the teachers are anxious to resume their duties without the cloud of uncertainty hanging over their heads. Kevin Ogle, Action 4 in Moore.
Early indications showed the Black Dollar Days demonstration was a huge success in Oklahoma City. Blacks were encouraged to spend only $2 bills and Susan B. Anthony silver dollars from September 1st through 5th. The Medical Center State Bank is said to have exchanged more of the two types of currencies than any other city bank. Bank officials issued about $58,000 in $2 bills and 6,000 silver dollars. The response was better than expected.
So far as the number of people we had in the bank, we had 2,000 to 3,000 people just in the bank lobby. And that's taken into consideration that it was the first of the month and also a holiday weekend. But I'd say we had 2 to 3 times the number of people that we would normally have on a Saturday. NAACP had worked with the city and state so far as telling their employees that if they would come to Medical Center State Bank, even though they didn't have an account here, we would cash their checks in exchange for the $2 bills and the Susan B. Anthony. So we had the city, the state, and the Postal Service, a number of their employees coming here, cashing their checks for the currency.
Citywide, it's estimated more than $250,000 was exchanged for $2 bills and silver dollars. NAACP officials said overall the demonstration did what it was supposed to do. That is, impress upon businesses blacks have big bucks to spend. And black money can support merchants who support the community. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
To the Cynthia, welcome to state government in Oklahoma. And Dan, I just told them I wish you the very best and tell you the number of interest that you had and the three.
The passage of the Oklahoma parimutuel legislation has created a situation entirely unique to the horse racing industry. This state's racing industry is without parallel when you consider the current non-parimutuel racing schedule has a 1983 purse structure of an excess of $8 million.